Chapter 19. Beth blushed and quickly turned her head away, not before noticing that River had the same compass tattoo as Finn and Teague. It was on her right shoulder. As she left the room, she wondered whether Cash and Zach had one. Is it a group thing? She pondered as she closed the door. Back in the hallway, Cash and Zach were still scuffling over who would shower first. Snickering, she skirted past and entered the living room. Finn stood by the fireplace. Seeing her, he held up a framed photo. "Is this your family?" Beth took the picture from his hand. The smiling faces of the Sepulveda family, in all their middle-class glory, stared up at her. Alicia, her mom, was an older version of Beth. There was no better description. Same height, same hair color, and round face. Frank, Beth's father, stood towering over them. He was a rugged, handsome man, tall and fit, with a head full of dark brown hair. And sitting beside Beth was her older brother Thomas. She nodded. "Y'all look happy." "Yeah. Everyone is always happy and smiling in photos. We were younger back then." She placed the frame back on the mantel. Finn shook his head. "Not all families have happy pictures. Sometimes there ain't enough happy times to photograph." He picked up a photo of her brother Thomas. "How much older than you is he?" "About 4 years," she said. She looked at the image. Thomas was handsome, with his dark brown hair and big brown eyes. She wanted to change the subject. "Do you have any brothers or sisters?" He shook his head. "No." Beth nodded. He was so guarded. She had never met anyone who was so sealed off before. "So where's he now?" asked Finn. "Your brother." Beth shrugged. "I haven't seen him much in the past several months. Thomas moved out almost a year ago. There was a big blow-up, and he left in a huff. There was a time when she and Thomas were very close. She looked up to him in that special way that little sisters looked up to their older brothers. To her, he was a hero. She knew no matter what, her big brother would always be there. After his 20th birthday, that all changed. She wasn't sure what made it happen. She just knew that it was around the time that he became a different person. He was violent and angry most of the time. He made it impossible to be around." Finn said nothing. He stood still, staring at her in that creepy way of his, like he was studying a lab animal. Teague walked past, stopping at the end of the hall. "Those two Koyons are going to be at it forever. Or at least till one of them gets tired and gives up." He turned to Beth. "We might as well do laundry while we wait. Where's the washer at?" "It's over here," answered Beth, happy to be free of Finn's watchful eye. She crossed the kitchen and opened a door. "Everything you need is in here." "Let's get to it," said Teague, as he walked back to the living room. A few moments later, he returned, arms full of dirty clothes. The pungent odor of sweat was so strong, Beth could smell it from several feet away. "Thanks for letting us use your house like this, Beth," he said, as he shoved dirty clothes into the washer. "It's no bother at all. I'm glad I could help," she replied. Then, in a moment of honesty, she added, "Actually, it's been great hanging out with y'all. I know this is weird, but I feel comfortable around you. Like friends I've known a long time." She let her voice trail off as she realized both of them were staring at her. "Oh God, I'm rattling on again," she thought. Beth smiled at Teague, then glanced at Finn. The expression on his face was strange, almost menacing. Was that a sneer? It was only there for a moment. Perhaps she imagined it. Stop reading so much into things. Finn took his shirt off and handed it to Teague, who had just done the same. He tossed them both into the washer. What are you doing?" asked Beth. "Laundry," replied Teague. He winked and bent down to pull off one boot, then the other. He peeled off his dirty socks and tossed them in. As though she wasn't there, Finn emptied the contents of his pockets. He placed them on top of the dryer along with his belt and bowie knife, then removed his pants and added them to the washer. "Can't wash it if you're wearing it," said Teague, who had removed his pants and added them to the mix. He turned on the machine and closed the lid. If Beth thought she was uncomfortable before, the two of them standing there in their boxer shorts made it even worse. Thank God they left those on. She felt the blood rush to her face. They walked past her into the kitchen, where Finn hopped on the counter. Teague went over to the refrigerator and pulled out some eggs, bacon, butter, and a bottle of hot sauce. "Oh my God, they're seriously going to cook in my kitchen in their underwear? Okay, be calm. This is no big deal," she told herself, trying to ignore their lack of clothes. She pulled up a stool by the island and sat down. Cash entered the kitchen. "Ah, eggs and bacon," he said excitedly. "Zach want, huh?" taunted Finn. "Haha, yeah, whatever. I let him go first," replied Cash. He looked around and grinned. "I see we started the laundry." "Wait, is this normal?" asked Beth. Cash snickered. "Yeah, you should see the faces of all the people in the washaterias when they do this. Sometimes the old ladies will stare with a huge smile on their faces, and other times they'll walk out angry and disgusted. These two will sit there in their shorts for hours, oblivious. Y'all don't get embarrassed or self-conscious that strangers are staring at you? In your underwear? Finn and Teague looked at one another, shrugged, and shook their heads. Cash put his hand on Beth's shoulder. Look, Beth, one thing you need to know about these two. They're feral. Well, that one is for sure. He pointed at Finn. You know what that is, right? Without waiting for a response, Cash explained. A feral animal is one that used to live with people, but then something happened, and it was abandoned. Left it to survive on its own. Because they once lived among people, they have no fear of them. They may look and act harmless, but the truth is, they're worse than wild. Far more dangerous. He pointed at Teague. This one still has some social potential, but deep inside, he's every bit as twisted as that one. They honestly couldn't give two shits about what other people think of them. This is one of the many reasons we love them. Finished cooking. Teague divided up the food. Beth watched in horror as he and Finn covered their eggs and bacon with hot sauce. Her dad was the only person who could tolerate that stuff. It was way too hot for her. It didn't seem to affect them at all. River entered the room, a towel wrapped around her head. Do I smell bacon? As she stole a piece from Cash's plate, she looked at Finn and Teague, then at Beth. I see they got to the laundry first. She smiled at Beth and gave her a little hug as she said, You'll get used to us. Beth gestured to Finn and Teague. One of you can use my parents' bathroom if... Before she could even finish her sentence, both of them had taken off down the hall to the master bedroom. Aw, man, y'all had bacon? Said Zach as he entered the kitchen. River handed him a plate. I saved you some. Cash bolted to the bathroom. Don't let them freak you out, River said to Beth. When I first met them, I didn't know what to think. These boys are weird sometimes. She nodded toward Zach, who was busy eating. But I honestly couldn't imagine being with any other group of people. Or even being alone again. They grow on you. She winked. Like a fungus. Beth could see what River meant. They were quite endearing. Weird, but in a good way. They finished up their food and cleaned up the dishes. Waiting for the others, River turned to Beth. So where's your bedroom? I'm thinking it's full of stuffed teddy bears with a ruffled bedskirt and matching curtains, she teased. Beth was dreading this part. If you promise not to make fun of me, I'll show you. Cross my heart and hope to die, replied River. The hallway was empty and quiet. Beth let the door to her room swing open, gesturing for River to enter. Here it is, in all its little girl glory. Please don't think it looks stupid and childish. River sauntered around the room, past the shelves overflowing with stuffed animals and collectibles. She smiled as she ran her hands over the curtains. They matched the bedding. In the corner, over by the window, sat Beth's writing desk. She looked over the items attached to the pinboard that hung on the wall. These are your friends from yesterday? She pulled the photo down. Yeah, said Beth. She pointed at each person. That's Liz, Eli, and Kara. Are y'all close? Before Beth could reply, a flurry of activity erupted in the hallway. As Finn and Teague bumbled into the room, hair wet and carrying towels, they stopped and looked around. Aw, it's Beth's room, said Finn. Teague pulled a teddy bear off of one shelf and tossed it over to him. Finn caught the bear and hopped onto Beth's bed. He leaned up against the pillows with one arm behind his head, holding the teddy bear in the other. Aside from Eli, Beth had never had a boy in her bedroom before, let alone in his underwear. She was trying to ignore how uncomfortable she felt, but it didn't help that he was lounging around on her bed. How red is my face? River scolded. All right, time to get out of here. It's Beth's room. Don't embarrass her. This is her private domain. She shoved Teague toward the door, then reached her arm out for Finn. She pulled him onto his feet and shoved him in the hallway. Back in the kitchen, Teague went back to the laundry. Cash, finally out of the shower, came into the kitchen rubbing his wet hair with a towel. Finally, they were all in one place. Time to ask her question. Okay, so I have to ask, said Beth. The compass tattoos. I noticed that Finn, Teague, and River all have the same one, just in different places. River was smiling at her. Do you have it too, Cash? He nodded and showed his left forearm. How about you, Zach? He nodded. What's it mean? It seems like there's some sort of meaning behind it. She paused as she waited for a reply. A compass is a symbol of a traveler, explained Zach. Sailors used to believe that getting a compass tattoo would protect you through rough waters and ensure that you'd always find your way home. He lifted his right shirt sleeve to show Beth the tattoo on his upper arm. Seemed kind of fitting for us. Since traveling is all we do, that's why I designed this one. Beth touched Zach's arm and ran her finger along the tattoo's outline. His words struck a chord deep inside, one she didn't even know existed until that moment. She wondered what it would be like to run away with them and never look back. "You, finished feeling up his arm?" asked Cash, interrupting the moment. River scoffed and hit him. Beth blushed and let her hand drop away.